You know, the only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right.
It's always nice to hear from Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow, otherwise known as Team China, on the importance of a free and fair election, and on how Donald Trump is always the bad guy. So the Democrats have positioned themselves as the party of free elections and fair elections and election integrity. And just last evening, Donald Trump made his case to America on how he now has declassified information on what China was up to, what team Joe Biden was up to, what team Hillary Clinton and Rachel Maddow were up to. So I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know about the integrity of the electronic voting system. So this is going to show you all of the receipts that you have to know. But first, let's start off with the main postulate that Donald Trump has always been called a liar when it comes to his concerns and his statement saying that the election was stolen in 2020. And Hillary Clinton, Rachel Maddow, all the Democrats, right, the experts, Adam Schiff, say that Donald Trump's lying, that he doesn't have any proof. So last night was the first move from the Trump administration on this proof. So let me show you this 20-second clip to set up what is ultimately all of the receipts that you're ever going to need to know on the importance of understanding how easily the electronic voting systems can be hacked. And this is coming from the experts like Hillary Clinton, Adam Schiff, Joe Biden's team, and the real experts. But first, let's get to Donald Trump and the setup.
Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people.
So again, Donald Trump has now made the case by declassifying files from the deep state and from the three-letter agencies on their awareness of the involvement of China. So Hillary and Team China were quite active. But this is now, let's walk through, I mean, you just can't get enough of this lady. Let's walk through from the experts, including Hillary Clinton, why electronic voting machines, when the election goes not her way, are dangerous, are vulnerable, and can be hacked. So let's hear from Team China.
Virginia just stopped using touchscreen computer voting because it's so vulnerable.
Right.
We need to look at all the voting machines. Every Secretary of State needs to be, assisted in making sure that they are not being hacked and attacked.
I continue to think that our voting machines are too vulnerable.
Researchers have repeatedly demonstrated that ballot recording machines and other voting systems are susceptible to tampering.
Even hackers with limited prior knowledge, tools, and resources are able to breach voting machines in a matter of minutes.
So again, while we're watching this, because we will actually get to the true experts here shortly, and again, I want you to have all the receipts so you can send this to all your liberal friends that say that Donald Trump's just making it up. These are Democrats, in their own words, saying what we all know, that there's extreme vulnerability with these machines. But the question I have for you as you're watching these Democrats tell us what we know to be true is, why are they worried now, and why are they calling Donald Trump a tyrant and a fascist when he's saying the same thing that they've said for years? Think about it.
In 2018, electronic voting machines in Georgia and Texas deleted votes for certain candidates or switched votes from one candidate to another.
The biggest seller of voting machines is doing something that violates Cybersecurity 101, directing that you install remote access software, which would make a machine like that a magnet for fraudsters and hackers.
These voting machines
Interesting.
can be hacked quite easily.
You could easily hack into them. It makes it seem like all these states are doing different things, but in fact, 3 companies are controlling this.
It is the individual voting machines that pose some of the greatest risk.
There are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked.
Workers.
So again, if Kamala Harris knows that to be true, why don't we all just agree that this is an issue that needs to be fixed and that Donald Trump, for bringing it up, isn't the bad guy and he's not lying? I mean, Ted Lieu, he's been attacking Donald Trump on this issue for 6 years. Here's Ted Lieu just years ago saying what we all know to be true.
Were able to easily hack into an electronic voting machine. It was possible to switch votes.
43% of American voters use voting machines that researchers have found have serious security flaws, including backdoors.
We know how vulnerable now our systems were. I know the hackathon that took place last year, where virtually every machine was broken into fairly quickly.
I actually held a demonstration for my colleagues here at the Capitol, where we brought in folks who, before our eyes, hacked election machines. Those that are being used in many states.
Aging systems also frequently rely on unsupported software like Windows XP in 2000, which may not receive regular security patches and are thus more vulnerable to the latest methods of cyber attack.
In a close presidential election, they just need to hack one swing state, or maybe 1 or 2, or maybe just a few counties in one swing state.
So let me jump in here, Ted Lieu, and I'm going to change your pronouns from they, meaning the Republicans in your instance, to we, because that's exactly what you did. Donald Trump has the receipts, but now he's the bad guy for bringing up everything that you've said for years that we know to be true. And incidentally, there's an X account, Kanakoa the Great. This is where this compilation is from, so please be sure to follow him. I'm going to put a link to his profile down below. But are we having fun yet? Let's keep going.
Very concerned that you could have a hack that finally went through. You have 21 states that were hacked into. They didn't find out about it for a year.
Right now, we have over a dozen states that either don't have any backup paper ballots or only have them partially. Do you think that our adversaries don't know what those states are? Of course they know what those states are. And if we have a close election, in the general election, in a presidential race, and one state's outstanding, and their ballot boxes gets hacked into, their elections get hacked into, we will have absolutely no backup.
So are we to expect here, Amy Klobuchar, for you to get in front of the microphones this morning and say that what you were just worried about years ago is in fact true and it benefited your party? It actually swung certain senators, think, right, Raphael Warnock in Georgia, a swing state. So what you just said came true. Your party benefited, but you need to now come in front of this microphone, right? And tell us that you're concerned about this. Will you? I guess we'll have to wait.
I know America's voting machines are vulnerable because my colleagues and I have hacked them repeatedly. We've created attacks that can spread from machine to machine like a computer virus and silently change election outcomes. And in every single case, we've found ways for attackers to sabotage machines and to steal votes. Across the country, there are about 52 different models of machines. They fall into essentially 2 styles, ones that scan a piece of paper or ones where the voter just interacts with the touch screen. And many of them have been analyzed now by researchers looking for security vulnerabilities. In every single case where a US voting machine has been analyzed by competent security researchers, they have found vulnerabilities that would let someone inject malicious software and change election data.
So let me pause that. In every single case with every single electronic voting vendor, they can be hacked. This is not controversial, folks. We're not tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists in saying that we need to go back to paper ballots and get away from electronic voting, because anybody can coordinate with the Democrats in this instance or just alone have, any one of our adversaries, that is, have an effect on critical elections, namely the President of the United States.
Every single case.
The better or the more efficient way of hacking machines would be to subvert them all through the machine that's used to actually program those machines. So prior to each election, the county election office or the voting machine vendor will actually program memory cards for that election. It tells the machine who are the candidates, what are the the contests being decided, and that gets inserted into the voting machine. If you can subvert that machine that is used to program those memory cards, then you can pass rogue software to the voting machines.
Voting machines are not connected to the internet. This is something that you hear all the time in the US from election officials. Unfortunately, it's not actually true. And many new voting machines come with 4G wireless modems so that they can be connected to the internet from the polling place in order to upload the results faster. Now, to me, that sounds crazy. Why would you want to put your voting machines on the internet right in the middle of the election, potentially at the most vulnerable time?
Studies conducted in 2007 by the state of California, state of Ohio, state of Florida found security vulnerabilities that could take advantage of these to engineer viruses, where one compromised voting machine could then infect eventually the entire fleet of machines for an entire county. Typically at the end of the election day, you move a memory card through each of the machines in the precinct, and that's to collect the vote totals. That process can spread a virus. And there are other processes. The details vary from machine to machine.
When you say hacked, what were they able to do once they gained access to the machines?
Oh, all sorts of things. They could manipulate the outcome of the vote. They could manipulate the tally. They could delete the tally. And they could compromise the vote in any number of ways.
The machines used in Georgia have been demonstrated to be hackable through a virus that's carried on ballot definition cartridges, very much like the Stuxnet virus was inserted into nuclear centrifuges in Iran.
There are a number of states that outsource their reporting of elections to third parties, some of which are corporations based in other countries like Spain. So you've got to trust that.
So listen, a UC Berkeley, you have to, imagine, I don't think it's a stretch that he would be voting Democrat and is probably a liberal, or else he's not going to be a tenured professor at Berkeley. Just told you that we have other countries that absolutely can do this, and they have interest in doing this and do this. And this is from C-SPAN. All right in front of us, folks.
The aggregation of the votes and the reporting of the votes is accurate as well.
I'm pretty sure my undergrad computer security class at Michigan could have changed the outcome of the 2016 Michigan election if we wanted to. It is that bad. And we have a combination of very powerful adversaries and unfortunately quite vulnerable and obsolete systems. That's why I say it's only a matter of time.
Unfortunately, in a lot of these systems, the audit trails are just as vulnerable as the other aspects of the system, so there may not be good forensic evidence of a successful intrusion. With the current design, we cannot be universally confident that it hasn't happened. And it's probably only a matter of time before it will.
In at least 40...
Again, it happened, folks. So the last two speakers said it's just a matter of time. Well, that turned out to be, unfortunately, very true.
States, elections are carried out using machines that are at least a decade old, and like any technology, they're susceptible to increasing failure with age. Some state officials have had to turn to eBay to find critical components like dot matrix printers, decades-old storage devices, and analog modems. Aging systems also frequently rely on unsupported software like Windows XP in 2000, which may not receive.
So again, you can see from the Chiron here, Zoe Lofgren, she's a Democrat from California. She's outlined everything that Donald Trump just said last night. Is she going to get in front of the microphones today and say that what I said to the world, right, on the floor of the House of Representatives in 2014 or 15 when she said this, is she going to say it turned out to be true? I guess we should hold our breath.
Regular security patches and are thus more vulnerable to the latest methods of cyber attack.
In 2016, state election websites in Illinois and Arizona were hacked by intruders who installed malware and downloaded sensitive voter information.
It is worth fighting for integrity in our election system, which means that they are free from interference by a hostile or an unfriendly nation.
So again, they literally told us, folks, here's word salad Kamala Harris, telling us exactly what they were going to do. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump outlining this is a hit from Kamala in 2018. Guess what they were doing in 2018? Exactly what Kamala Harris just said, that she's so worried about, right? This is the no justice, no peace senator going into vice president in 2020 that told you, literally, her concern for free and fair elections and hackability. They were actually doing it and coordinating it the whole time.
Let's put the resources into upgrading the state's elections systems. Because what we know is this: there are a lot of states that are dealing with antiquated machines, right, which are vulnerable to being hacked. I sit on the Senate Intelligence Committee and Senate Homeland Security Committee, and we receive all kinds of information about the vulnerabilities to our national security. We are vulnerable in terms of foreign interference with our elections.
You
It's my
think?
understanding that some of the election system vendors have required states to sign agreements that prevent or inhibit independent security testing. There's a saying that I'm sure many of you have heard, which is the difference between being hacked and not being hacked is knowing you've been hacked.
Oh, we know that we've been hacked, Kamala. We've known it all along. It was clear. And in this instance, again, they showed us their playbook. The coordinated effort with the deep state, the three-letter agencies, with China, and with the Biden campaign were all outlined last evening and then declassified this morning. So she absolutely knew at this time that this is what they were up to. The reports that we saw this morning go back to 2016. That's what Hillary was all bent on. She didn't win, and she thought Donald Trump cheated. So incidentally, and I want you to pay attention to this as we continue with this clip, none of these people that are admitting the truths that we know to be true are Republicans. These are all the Democrats saying, right, that hackability and that vulnerability from our adversaries is something we should be worried about. Well, again, the Democrats are the ones that did it.
And they are still looking for ways to steal information about voter registration, for example. There are some text
275 million voter registration data fields were stolen by China. All declassified now. So, Hillary, you're right. The problem is your party coordinated with them.
experts in Silicon Valley with whom I have met who say that maybe what they'll do this next time is to really disrupt the actual election. Shut
that's
down
exactly
the
what they
servers
did.
that you send results to. Interfere with the operation of voting machines because still too many of them are linked to the internet. So we are still very vulnerable.
I mean, I can tell.
Hillary Clinton admitted something that, again, all of the mainstream fake news media said that we were lying on, which is that these voting machines were connected to the internet. Dominion and Smartmatic sued the you-know-what off of Mike Lindell for saying just that. Hillary Clinton said it in 2014.
In Virginia, when I was governor, I had to replace all the machines because I remember when I first voted, when I went to Richmond, moved down as governor, I remember I kept voting in the Senate race, kept voting for the Democrat, Republican name kept coming up. 3 times that happened.
What do you mean kept coming up?
So, we had the touch screens. I was voting for Mark Warner, our senator, and Ed Gillespie's name would light up. Happened to me 3 times. Finally, the 4th time, Mark's name, and I quickly hit vote, and I got out of there. All the cameras are looking at me like, this guy doesn't know how to vote. I mean, what's going on? So then I had an investigation done, and listen to this.
Okay.
I brought in some technology experts. They were able to hack into our machines from off-site in about 5 or 6 minutes, and within 4 minutes, they were able to change a vote. I decertified all the machines. Now in Virginia, we have paper ballots.
43%.
Paper ballots. Again, it's just all a matter of when this party of criminals, the Democrats, when you stick a microphone in front of them, right? When Donald Trump wins, Terry McAuliffe is going to say, oh, I switched to paper ballots. And he's going to get an applause on Bill Maher, right? And he's going to admit that there was internet connectivity and ballot switching that hackers could do in his election when he was Virginia governor. And he was passionate about it, saying, you know, I proved the case and I brought in the experts and this can happen and this is terrible. But you only hear them say this when Donald Trump wins, not when they do.
Percent of American voters use voting machines that researchers have found have serious security flaws, including backdoors. These companies are accountable to no one. They won't answer basic questions about their cybersecurity practices, and the biggest companies won't answer any questions at all. 5 states have no paper trail, and that means there is no way to prove the numbers the voting machines put out are legitimate. So much for Cybersecurity 101.
The vast majority of 10,000 election jurisdictions nationwide use election management systems that run on old software that is soon going to be out of date and ripe for exploitation by hackers, according to an exhaustive analysis by the Associated Press.
Well, I thought he was going to say the Democrat National Committee, because if you look at the date here, this is July 15th, 2019. What were they doing? They were coordinating with China. We know that now. And they were also suppressing the intelligence reports to Donald Trump at this exact time. Donald Trump said that. He has a daily briefing from the Intelligence Committee, and none of them were saying that this was an issue. And now he has declassified these files where what Ron Wyden is saying at this exact moment in 2019, what he said is true, and what he said or didn't say is that the DNC and the Biden campaign were ramping up their efforts and their coordinated malicious efforts with China at this exact time.
Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Arizona, and North Carolina, among others, are all at risk. Even the state of Georgia, which just passed legislation to buy new voting machines, is on track to buy equipment that suffers from this significant cybersecurity weakness.
Where was Ron Wyden when we knew this to be true in December of 2020 in Fulton County, when we saw at 2 a.m. the blip go for Biden? It was just 3,000 votes that made the difference. Ron Wyden here in July 2019 said it. Said that Georgia just passed this. They have concerns about the vulnerability of these new systems that they just bought. Well, Ron Wyden, where are you this morning? Again, these are all Democrats, in their own words, saying what we know to be true.
Let's say the election is decided by a small percentage. And people in America don't think that the election was fair. The effect that would have on our 200-year experiment in self-governance, our democratic system would take a real hit.
Did you hear anything from Ron Wyden, the Democrat from Oregon, when this same thing actually happened, where a small group of nefarious votes swung a national election? Did Ron Wyden get in front of the microphones and say, Joe Biden, we need to look at this? The answer is no. These are the biggest hypocrites in the world, excuse me, and they're only concerned, again, about this, and they've gotten in front of all of the microphones and cameras when Donald Trump was president. But when they used this to their advantage, what we knew could happen, they were crickets. And they're going to be crickets today. Not one of them has said anything about Donald Trump. In fact, what they're saying is that this is proof that Donald Trump is now getting ready to enact the Insurrection Act, because he's such a fascist and worried about the midterm elections that everything that he said about vulnerability and suppression of the hackability and China's nefarious activities in coordination with China is not true, because anything Donald Trump says is not true, even though this whole 20-minute clip has been Democrats saying what we know to be true. That said, they're still not going to come out and admit what we know to be true. They've said it here, but they're crickets today.
Elections weren't secure last week, and they sure as heck aren't secure this week.
Amen.
And anybody who says otherwise is either selling you voting machines or simply has a malicious intent towards our
Agree,
elections.
Ron.
At one point in the Intelligence Committee, both sides seemed to agree that no votes were changed in the 2016 election. And I said, the experts I talked to say that until you have a forensic analysis of a vote, until you go in there and scrub the whole system, you can't really say that.
These machines don't have a capability of providing you forensic evidence to see if they cannot prove they were honest, they cannot prove that they have been hacked. They simply don't have the fundamental basic capabilities of providing you that forensic evidence, that data. Only way you can see that that machine was hacked if the attacker wanted to be found that it was hacked. That's a sad truth.
That's a sad
anyone
statement.
who says, I have information one way or another, that's an opinion. That's not fact-based.
And by the way, if you look at, this is the irony of this statement from this European fella, the Atlantic Council, which is, you know, got their logo all over the banner behind them, there's no question that they were involved in this. These are the biggest neocons that answer to the WEF and answer to the globalists. So the Atlantic Council, how this guy, Harry Hursty, ever got in front of a microphone with that banner behind him is beyond me.
Fact is, it can be done without leaving trace.
When you know how the systems work, looking for the evidence, you know that you won't find it because the systems are not recording, generating, preserving, or protecting meaningful forensic evidence. And this is from the very beginning to the end of the process everywhere. And these systems really don't have a capability of recording and protecting any meaningful audit information or forensically important information. So a lot of times I would also argue that even if you try to take a look into the evidence, the problem is that there is no evidence which is trustworthy and worth analyzing.
We've heard a lot from voting machine vendors and election officials that voting machines can't be hacked because they're not connected to the internet. All of those vulnerabilities that Andrew talked about are not a problem because no one can access the machines. And it turns out that that message that they've been giving us for years, and particularly after the 2016 election, just isn't true. Voting machines.
So this is Kim Zetter. She's a cybersecurity journalist, right? She's here lecturing us from Georgetown Law. And again, Donald Trump was president at this time. This is just very early February 2020. That in this instance, she's not saying, she didn't write one article saying that Donald Trump was right. So again, why are we seeing this consistent pattern from 2016 to 2019 and now 20, where the Democrats and their whole controlled media are saying what we know to be true, are saying what Donald Trump said last evening, but now that Donald Trump says this, that he has a concern, they don't. Well, we have all the receipts, and you need to send this video to all of your Democrat friends that say that there's no receipts and that Donald Trump's just making it up. This is all of their people, right? Saying the same thing.
Vendors have sold election officials on these in use of modems. In some cases, the modems are embedded inside the voting machines. In another case, they're external modems that get attached to the voting machine at the end of the election. So at the end of the election, the machine goes into shutdown mode, and then this option pops up about
Why would you need
results.
a modem?
And so the system will
you,
automatically then dial
had no
in and
interest in
send
connecting
these
to the internet?
votes over a cellular modem to a server on the internet that collects the results. So everyone will tell you, and they've told me every time I've spoken with them, that cellular modems are not really internet connectivity. They will say, that doesn't mean that the machine is connected to the internet, it's using a cellular modem. Well, that's not true. And
That makes
Election
no
Systems
sense.
and Software, which is the top voting machine maker in the country, this is one of their statements over and over again with the public. But this is one of their own diagrams that they actually gave to Rhode Island in 2015. And if you see that circular part in the center there showing that modem transmission using a wireless modem, they sit there, right there. It's on their own diagram that it's going over the internet.
Before every election officials have to program the voting machines with who's on the ballot and what are the rules for counting. Well, they make that election programming on a PC workstation somewhere, either at the jurisdiction or at an outside vendor that does it for them. If an attacker can break into that workstation, which is called an election management system, they can spread malicious code to all of the memory cards used to program all of the voting machines in the jurisdiction. And those election management system workstations sometimes are connected to the internet, or the data that's programmed into them passes through an internet-connected system. So we're just 1 or 2 hops away from an online attacker. So if I wanted to break into this company, let's say I was the attacker, I'd probably start by forging an email from, let's say, Larry, the president here, to Sue, his administrative assistant, asking her to urgently open an attachment. Now, of course, when she does, that attachment has my malware in it. I have a foothold into their network, and I can try to spread from there to the election management system and to the voting machines in most of the state. Tampering with the national election result in my country is easier than even I thought in 2016. I keep learning things that convince me that the situation is scarier than even experts had thought. You identify the states that are most weakly protected and going to be close, target the computers that are going to program voting machines there, spread malware to machines to change a fraction of the votes, and then rely on the fact that most states, even if they have a paper record, are not going to rigorously use it to check that the computer.
I'm going to stop here. This is the recipe for what China did, and this is the recipe in the coordinated efforts from the DNC that they did in 2020. Right there, step 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're wondering how this happened, it's as easy as that. And this gentleman told you that it could happen. He told you actually before it could happen, and now here is his post-mortem on how it happened. So again, it's clear as day that we have issues. It's clear as day that the Democrats are passionate about it. It's also clear as day that when they have control and when they use it, these vulnerabilities to their advantage, that they think that you're crazy if you bring it up.
Are right. But the fact is that in close national contests in the US, the result really only hinges on the result in a small number of states. You've heard about the swing states in any given election, the ones that are really competitive. In such a situation, an attacker can, before the election, identify which states are likely to be close, try probing all of them in the way that the Russians did the voter registration systems in 2016, and just find the weakest swing states and attack there. So in this way, the American system converts diversity of implementation into basically this patchwork of strength and weakness that gives attackers a menu of possible places to strike. It makes us weaker in close elections.
Modems in voting machines are a bad idea. Those modems are network connections, and that leaves them vulnerable to hacking by anybody who can connect to that network.
ES&S insists while there are 14,000 of its modems in use, there are firewalls separating those modems from the public internet.
Once a hacker starts talking to the voting machine through the modem, they can hack the software in the voting machine and make it cheat in future elections.
What is the vehicle for the transmission from the ICP? Is it cellular modem versus VPN?
Well, it is a cellular modem that can be configured in a VPN, right? And we currently in Chicago and Cook County, we work with Verizon to secure that network.
What wireless chipset / modem does the hardware have?
We support a variety. It's really up to the jurisdictions what technology they want to use, what's compatible with their networks.
Currently, in some jurisdictions, we're using basically a modem that is a 3G modem, GSM, but we can support multiple varieties of modem that can be.
Including latest 4G standards as well.
So the answer is the next question, is it 3G or 4G? Verizon, AT&T, or Sprint, I'm assuming all?
Yeah, all networks. Just a point of fact, yeah, I mean, we actually transmit from the ICP in Mongolia as well, so we're not limited in networks.
And in Puerto Rico, there's 3 vendors.
Interesting.
The island is not covered by any of the vendors completely, so we use 3 different cellular vendors for some ICPs with its vendor, Claro, AT&T, and T-Mobile, I think, in the different parts of the island.
More modern voting machines, they actually have a mobile phone modem in the speak. They have a mobile phone connectivity to county headquarters. They are sending the results.
Some jurisdictions are relying on uploading election results using cellular modems or the internet. That, of course, introduces another point of vulnerability, not just to the data that's flowing, but also to the software, the devices that are being connected.
Again, we were told in 2020 when there were concerns about this that all of the machines, every single one of them, wasn't connected to the internet. Well, it turns out that they were the whole time.
Many of these voting machines have modems embedded into them, and the modems are used at the end of the election to transmit the vote totals on election night to the county elections office. So these modems contact, their cellular modems, and they contact the cellular network, they contact the cell tower. So the cell tower traffic these days in our modern times actually goes through internet. It goes through the same kinds of routers and switches that the regular internet traffic goes to. But also in between that cell tower and that voting machine, an intruder can intercept data going to the cell tower and intercept that communication, that phone call. If you can trick a voting machine into contacting your device, your fake cellular tower, instead of a legitimate tower, you can actually use that connection to get back into the voting machine and get back into the tabulator.
Unreal.
And then alter votes and software.
So just to review, you look at the polls before the election and figure out which states were likely to be close, probe all
Here's
of them,
the
find the ones
recipe.
with the weakest protection. Then hack into the election management systems there or at the outside vendors the states use. Once you hack into the election management system, you can spread malicious code to individual voting machines and have your code say swap 10% of the votes in the places you infected.
Just say 10% of the votes. Enough in the swing states. It was enough in Fulton County. So this is what we have, folks. This whole piece is Democrats and the nerds, who obviously knew that this could happen the whole time, but specifically Democrats saying what they were going to do and what they ended up doing and what they were concerned about, ended up doing in 2020, and what they were concerned about in 2016 when they accused Russia, and Donald Trump of doing this. So we started out this clip, excuse me, with Rachel Maddow and with Hillary Clinton cheering for Team China. Well, we found out last evening that Donald Trump has now proven his case with Declassified records that China was in fact involved in flipping votes, in hacking voter databases, and in coordinating with the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign in 2020. The only question now is, so what? Is anybody going to be arrested? Are there going to be perp walks? Is the Trump DOJ going to take this information and do something about it? Last evening, he had this, kind of comical threat. Well, I'm going to send letters to the states that were affected. I think you need to do more than that, Trump. I think we expect that anybody, including folks at the agencies, folks at the state level, or nefarious international actors, need to be put on notice, need to be charged and implicated with election interference. Because this, the step 1, 2, 3, and 4, is exactly the recipe that the Democrats, China, and the Biden campaign used in 2020. Did I miss something? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've yet to subscribe to The Chris Locke Show, we'd love to have you along for the ride. We'll see you in the very next video. Be sure to like and subscribe to The Chris Locke Show for the latest America First news, conservative commentary, and the stories that mainstream media refuses to cover. These 2 videos right up here, they're going to be next. Pick your favorite. I'll see you over there.